After after the dreams of my father, after reading that book, um, it was more personal, and I actually learned a lot from it. For example, how people viewed modernization. If you like that I read, if you're wearing a trouser, which is the clothing that the colonizers wear, then it's almost like an abomination. Alright, so I think that applies in a lot of places because it's sort of African law. And in the end, giving people gifts and all sorts of things eventually changes that kind of mindset, and more people actually got involved in the modern lifestyle kind of thing. Um, when I was at the village, my grandmother had just finished sort of plowing the field, right? And my little cousin was there too. I was so exhausted. I just slept in his room, and I sort of viewed it as a journey of self-discovery, because most of my life I have grown up in the urban areas, and which are the one that's even close to the city. Um, so I don't really have that cultural understanding, which is very vital if you are to convince someone who wholeheartedly believes in a certain thing. You can throw out facts, you can throw out what. It won't work. I see the most effective way. Um, I'll give one of the most famous uh, examples. I think it was a CIA agent, a psychiatrist, who was tasked um, with finding out how Hitler thinks, his mental state, and so forth. And this guy was in the States, and Hitler was in Germany. So he got it from pictures and from his speeches and all of that. And eventually they found out that Hitler was a creepy guy. He would sort of lay down and let his cousin, I think, urinate on him. And that's a problem. But how it was done, how all of these things came together until they had the profile of Hitler without even crossing borders. That example is a very good one. For one, we have a lot of unstable nations. We have impatient citizens, and we live in a sort of volatile environment. So obviously we have our defense, which is important. We have our police, which are also important in making sure that the rule of law is followed, but not imposing their own personal viewpoints on individuals, because the police main task is to protect civilians. And as you see, when some people try to jump from high buildings and they inflate a sort of what is the thing? I can think of a word. It's like they inflate that really big airfield sort of bed, and when the man jumps off, he jumps on it and he's safe. Alright? That's how lives should matter. To the point when someone is struggling and they have given up, you give them hope. You give them hope. And back to my analysis on first understanding the people. You have to first liberate the people mentally, so that they can start seeing faults within these terrorist organizations. And that's why these terrorist organizations are hell-bent on making sure that some kids don't go to school, because it will get them thinking, right? So, information is super, super important. So if you can sort of figure out a collective group and let them understand that they are humbled in the presence of God, but are not completely crippled by it. And I'm speaking of the Muslim world. Right? Because we have to coexist. It's just a must. Christians, Muslims, and so forth. We have to coexist. How can we coexist if we don't understand each other? And I'm talking about Muslims being taught about Christianity and how Christians perceive the world, and Christians being taught about how the Muslims perceive the earth, making it a little bit personal and bridging a slight gap, because the answer that you get is violence is always the very last resort. But when it does occur and you've lost maybe your child or your spouse and so forth, obviously you will have hate brewing within you. Albeit terrorist organizations, their trick is to instigate foreign troops so that they can end up saying, you see, these people are evil. Just look at what they did, and these people want to take away our religion, and that should be known. People are free to believe in whatever they believe. It's just the way it should work. It's a human right. And these kind of messages should be conveyed by charismatic leaders. I've seen some programs where they try to address certain issues, and I get bored because the speakers are not charismatic enough to simplify what they are trying to say as well, right? As well as sort of putting the picture together in front of people, right? Making them understand, because there is no Muslim invasion. Some terrorists just happen to be Muslims, but it's not a Muslim agenda, right? All the profiling and all of that. It's because of that belief that the Muslim agenda is the one they rule the world or whatever, wage wars. So, who are these target groups whose minds are still flexible enough to grasp certain concepts? And these are the younger ones, the men that are in their 90s, in their 88s. They are way too indoctrinated and way too hardened by conflict to not see it as propaganda, to not see it as a way of making them surrender somehow. Alright? So the arm has to be there. It's a must. The arm has to be there to make sure that justice prevails. Even if it's not a democracy, even if it's a communist country, whatever it is, there is still one thing that rules over men that most people bend over or cut holes through so that they can escape. And this is justice. Now, when we speak of justice, we should also inform people that merely killing someone is not justice. Like stoning someone or all of that is not justice. It just isn't. Put them in a cell, right? Or else these mobs have blood on their hands. They are murderers, they are killers. They did not resolve anything. It will keep happening because most people don't understand it. It's like skinny jean that the guy will always want to overpower and so forth. No, a rapist love power. They love being in so much control to the point where they brutally mishandle women. Right? It's not the act of forcing sex onto the female that gratifies them, just like Hitler's cousin being on him, and that being good enough for him or something. It's the same thing. And the same rules should apply where citizens feel safe. Alright, citizens need to feel safe. And that means if our police departments need more training, then more training must be had, right? Gone are the days of recruiting people merely to have them have an income. Now you recruit people and teach them more. Make it a longer period to learn. Make it more so that you have actual law enforcement, enforcement that is progressive, objective, and pro protecting civilians. This is what we need, and this is what will set us apart from most African countries. Right? Unindoctrinating a lot of people is really, really hard. But instead of trying to undoctrinate them, show them the other side of the other religion. What will happen is they will start to think. If it's done correctly. So, the world is much more at peace than it used to be. We have wiser, smarter, educated elders. We do. And it's time to look at the things that were being ignored. For example, power lines extending all the way to Nkulunkulu and such, so that people have access to electricity without having to buy their own transformers. This is cruel, very, very cruel. Development cannot just be centered in one place. It should be everywhere. So there are lots of projects that the government has ahead. It might seem pointless and useless today, but as time progresses, people realize the benefits, people utilize the benefits, and people actually feel like full citizens as well. So, yeah, I started with the book that I read, and that was basically to show people my admiration of the Obama family. They don't come from wealthy backgrounds or whatever. What he did was relentlessly work hard, gamble a lot because that's politics until he got to where he is. So for that I totally do respect him as well as his wife, and greetings to the kids, um, because he should realize that changes in America are changes in the whole world. Because of warfare, past warfare and war, people have always been on the offensive, having their guards protect their borders and so forth. So once that is neutralized, and there is actual peace, and the partners are there. Sadiq, when that happens, when people who wake up, dress up, and go to parliament or go to summits and so forth, do their talk and walk away, that is not leadership. Leaders like the leader of Kenya has shown he walks among the people because he was elected by them, and he does show that gratitude. So yeah, um, that's kind of what I felt. Like saying today, it's all short. It can be elaborated on and so forth and so forth, but I think the highlights were enough. Right? It's been a tremendously good week. Yes. So salute